Huh?
Quite a list.
Hour and a half. Just singing.
Yeah, but you keep adding to it, so it's going to be longer than that.
Better pray I get removed from here pretty quick then.
You better start singing.
All right. This is one of those sermons I could preach for 2 hours. I know you're not up for that. Some of you might say, go ahead, and I appreciate that. But I got to get this out. First thing is, I want you to open your Bibles to Leviticus chapter 26. And I want to walk through this because this is what I'm seeing. When I ask you that about what you're seeing for our nation and what's going on, a lot of this is all culminating to me. A little fearful about, one, where we're at, and two, without a proper response from the church. We come back to that I've shared with you before. This isn't on God's part, is it? God hasn't made any mistakes. God hasn't sinned. God hasn't caused any of this to bring judgments. But He says, and due to your response, the wages of sin is death. So sinners die. And punishment is hell because of their choices. The opposite of that as well is true. We all are appointed one time to die, but after this, the judgment, where He says to be absent from the body, to be present with the Lord. Why? Because of our choices. God's response to that, if you seek me, you'll find me when you search for me with all your heart. But the opposite of those things, if you turn away from me, then I turn away from you. If you forsake me, I forsake you. Those kind of things. So Leviticus 26, we set the standard here with this because, again, the numbers in the Bible, they matter. 3, 7, 12, 40. Almost everything else is either a multiple of that. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles, 7 days of creation. You get over to the celestial city, 12 gates, 12 foundations. You see all these things. 24 elders, division of 12. You see the numbers are consistent in this. Now again, we recognize the number of 7 is complete. It's perfect. The number of 6 being the number of man, not so complete. So the reason of 666 in Revelation, it's not the number of God, it's the number of man. And so we know that we're not complete. We know we're not perfect. So these multiples of 7 are important because of what we see going on right now. And again, what I want to hopefully that you see this and know this is that, again, your heart responds by saying, I'll pray in agreement with me. We can't go on like this. We need a divine outpouring of God's presence on the church that gets us back to where we need to be. Because again, if we continue on this current road, I'm fearful about what the next 6 months are going to bring in this. So in Leviticus chapter 26, God lays down this issue of warning by Moses to the children of Israel. Beginning in verse 3, if you walk in my statutes, keep my commandments, do them. This is obedience. If you do these things, what's God going to do? Again, we make a choice, we respond. What's God's response? If you keep these commandments, do these statutes, obey me, then I will give you rain in due season. The land shall yield her increase. The trees of the field shall yield their fruit. Your threshing shall reach unto the vintage, and the vintage shall reach unto the sowing time. And you shall eat your bread to the full, and you shall dwell in your land in safety. Blessings, right? Crops, protection, health, all these things. God says, you do what you're supposed to do, and I'll take care of all of that. So again, our priority, our standard becomes, then this is what I want to do. I want to go back to verse 3. I want to walk in His statutes. I want to keep His commandments, and I want to do them. Is our nation doing that? So He says, verse 14, but if you will not hearken unto me, and you will not do all these commandments, and if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, but that you break my covenant, I also will do this to you. Again, men's response: sin, disobedience, abhorring Him. That's a strong word for hate, isn't it? You know, I abhor ramps, but I'll let it slide. Abhor, that's a strong, and again, abhorring who? God? A God who's done nothing but sought to redeem, sought to bless, sought to deliver. Seems like a foolish response, doesn't it? But He says, if this is what you're going to do, then this is what I'm going to do. So He starts. Verse 16, I will do this unto you. I will appoint over you terror, consumption, the burning age, and that shall consume the eyes. It shall cause sorrow of heart, and you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies they shall eat it. I will set my face against you, and you shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and you shall flee when none pursues you. And if you will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. And I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron, and your earth as brass. Your strength shall be spent in vain, for your land shall not yield her increase, and neither shall the trees of the land yield their fruits. And if you continue to walk contrary unto me, and will not hearken unto me, I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you, according to your sins. Now He goes on to repeat in verse 24, verse 28, the same thing of multiples of 7. I'll give you a chance to listen, give you a chance to do, give you a chance to keep my commandments, but if you don't, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to punish you. And when you still don't listen to me, and you still don't turn back to me, how many times has God in the last 40 years given us a divine opportunity to turn back to Him, to keep His commandments, to do what we were supposed to do, and we didn't do it? Early 1970s, same period, Roe versus Wade and all that was going down. There was an outpouring of God's Spirit on the United States. It wasn't a great revival, but it was an outpouring called the Jesus Movement. It had all them long-haired hippies. Y'all remember long hair? Oh, we got one. Paul does. I was thinking of Paul and David back there, but they was unwanted by the church because they didn't dress right, and they didn't look right, and they didn't act right. And so Calvary Chapel set up worship for them with Maranatha music, praise and worship, gave them the gospel. Most of our evangelists today, I think about Michael Catt, Facing the Giants, those movies. He's the pastor of that church, Sherwood. Come out of the Jesus movement. Sammy Tippett, that I had evangelist in Romania when the revival was breaking out there in the 1980s. Come out of the Jesus movement. I listen to these guys, their testimonies, and they give credit. The Jesus movement is what saved me. That was when God was pouring out. I remember, I was only 3 years old, so I don't remember anything. I mean, I don't even remember a lot of this stuff, but I remember Dad talking about this, that when we was in Louisville at that point, right across the river in Indiana, he said there was a revival broke out. They had a week-long revival. God took over. They had a preacher out of Baltimore. They would fly him out. He'd fly back on weekends to Baltimore to preach at his pulpit. But it went on for weeks, this church service. Now, I say that because what did we see happen the last 2 years? Down there in Burlington, North Carolina, they have a tent. Guy gets up. They're supposed to preach for, I think it was 7 days. It went on all summer. Every night they was preaching. Every night people was getting saved. Now that's not revival. That's a favorable act of God. In the 1980s, when Jerry Falwell was trying to get the moral majority up, we recognized that our nation was sinking. And the church was grasping for straws politically to say, we need to get back on the right track. We need to keep the commandments of God and do them because we're seeing our families fall apart, our streets fall apart. Now, this was 40 years ago. Now look where we're at. That same kind of understanding, it has gotten 7 times worse, hasn't it? And if we don't listen and respond, what's the next round going to be? 7 times worse. Now, if you don't bring the wood in and feed the dogs and do what I tell you to do, I'm going to beat you 7 times. Now, that's Monday. I get to Wednesday, he still hasn't done it. You don't get the wood in and feed the dogs and do what I tell you, it's going to be 14. I like that multiple of 7. Now we're up to 28, 35, 42. My arm's getting tired. When's he going to learn? When's he going to do it? If you think after 21 times he ain't got it, he ain't never going to get it. When are we going to learn? When is the church going to learn that God in mercy says, no, I pour out my Spirit to refresh you, to bring you back to me, but don't go that way that the world is calling you to. And if you think that this is a remote, isolated thing, I wanted to give you these 7s that are here. So go over to the book of Revelation now. Revelation chapter 2 and 3. Do you know this? How many churches? 7. How many stars? How many candlesticks? 7, right? The church, perfect. His bride, perfect. Which is also a bad side of this. So we start in Revelation chapter 6. At the end of chapter 5, you know what this is that there was a book brought. And on the back of the book there were 7 seals. And the only one that could open the 7 seals was who? Christ, the Lamb. He came and he started opening the seals, breaking the seals. And so every seal, there was a judgment that came from God in this. So in chapter 6, I'm not going through all these. This is where I said, if I was to sit and go through all this, we'd look at the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 7 vials, and all that, and you could see the judgment of God, how it reaches out in this. But in chapter 6, Revelation, and I saw when the Lamb, again, capital Lamb there, so we know we're not talking about a little white lamb dancing around in the backyard, are we? We're talking about the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Isn't that amazing how he goes from being the Lamb to being the Lion of Judah? And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder. One of the 4 beasts saying, come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow. And there was a crown given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. And when I opened the 2nd seal, I heard the 2nd beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. You want to know why there's so much protesting and warfare in our streets? God gives peace. God can take peace. The horse is gone now. The seal's been broken. How long have we had peace? Oh, well, World War I. It's the war to end all wars. We'll never see another one of them, will we? 1914 and 1970. So you didn't know you was going to get a history lesson today, did you? Better than the History Channel. Just ask me. Those kids play that trivia. What is that? Trivia game? Hey, Dad, what's the answer to this on the history question? Cheat, cheat, cheat. 1917, they all signed the armistice. It's all, we'll never do this again and that. And then here comes Hitler, Blitzkrieg and all that in Europe. 1931, we're right back to it. 1941, bombing of Pearl Harbor. And here we are. Right back where we said we'd never be. Right? Here we go. 1950s, Korea. And that mess is still going on, isn't it? They just launched more missiles last week. Still a division. Still war. No peace. Here we go with Trump saying we're going to set up our embassy in Jerusalem, not Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, which to most people say, who cares where they set it up? But it matters there. They have never peace there, have they? But fighting words. That Jerusalem is right now what Muslims say, that's our holy city. And Jews say, no, that's our city. And Christians saying, well, this is where our Lord was, and that's our city. And you got everybody fighting for a piece of it. Sounds like Fox's Hollow, doesn't it? Everybody fighting for a slice of it. Just almost heaven. No peace. And again, this is only 2 seals. You look at the dynamics of this, just what short period of history I'm talking about. Do you think there's any peace up in the streets of Chicago?
No.
700 shot in 50 days? Still amazes me that they can't kill any more than what they are. Tell the city slickers the way they shoot. The idea that is that there's just no peace in the home. There's no peace in the streets. There's no peace anywhere, is there? You realize people sitting and they need the medicines and all that meds and the counselors and all this because they have no peace of mind. They sit there, anxieties and fears and depressions and discouragement because they allow for the circumstance to dictate to them instead of them dictating to the circumstances. I said it in my prayer. Lord, you are my rock, foundation. You are a very present help in time of trouble, my refuge and strength. You look at these, the peace is gone. He goes right down through these 7 seals. And again, 7 seals broken, and each seal gets worse than the last one. And they're all mounting on top of each one. So it's not just, oh, well, this is over here and this is over there. It is a ground base that keeps laying the problems. Then you jump over to Revelation chapter 8, 1 page over. And if you thought that the 7 seals were bad, that's just getting started. You have 3 intervals of 7. The first one is the 7 vials, chapter 8. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and they were given 7 trumpets. So now we go from the last 7 seal, ushering in the next 7. 7 trumpets blare. And every trumpet that blows, there's a judgment. There's a plague. So he starts. And another angel came and stood at the altar having a golden censer, and there was the prayers of the saints here. So down in verse 6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. Boy, don't that sound fun. You get a little bit of hail falling out there, and what's the first thing you think about? It's all about me. There goes my car. What are you going to do when hail and fire fall? Now we go back to the book of Exodus, don't we? What was one of the 10 plagues that God sent on Egypt? It was hail mixed with fire that fell on the ground and consumed the vegetation that was there. You go over in the book of Revelations, and there's a hailstone the size of a boulder. You know, you're going to do it right. And it's dropped. And it's going to cause some serious damage, isn't it? So the first trumpet sounds, and he says, and they were cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. No trees, no grass. How are you going to feed the livestock? How are we going to get our fruits and vegetables? I don't like turnips, but they're below the ground. They might be the only lifesaver, huh? And the second angel sounded, as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. Now we got the water effect. A third of the mountain cast in there that was on fire, burning with fire. Sounds like a volcano to me. If you watch over there in Italy, that volcano right there along the thing, starting to fire up again. I forget what it was, 400 AD was the last time it blew. I mean, we're all still old enough, except for our 2 youngsters up here. Mount St. Helens, ring a bell?
Yeah.
We had ash fall on us 3,000 miles away, didn't we? I remember that. What we're going to do when he says in this, and now it's dropped into the ocean, and again, the livestock, the fish, Y'all love lobster and shrimp and all that good stuff, and all gone. Going to affect us. The water supply, the water source. Again, 7 trumpets sound. And that every one is worse than the one before it. Progression. You don't listen to me. You don't do what I say. Next round's going to be 7 times worse. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about this and I'm looking at our world and I'm thinking about families and I'm thinking about individuals and I say, stop! God, I beg you, stop! Who sounds off? Who says enough? Like, I know what's coming. I don't want to go through this. I don't want them to go through this. When do we pull the emergency brake and say we can't go on? This is what God's going to do to us because of what we did to Him. And so we got to have some rational thoughts somewhere. I know that's hard to find today, but we got to do it. If this is what's coming, then let's not do the things that initiate it. If this is the punishment that we get for not doing it, well, then let's not do that. Let's do it. Let's keep His sayings, His statutes. Let's do what He told us to do. Let's live the way that He told us to live and be the people that He wants us to be. Then we won't have to worry about the punishments of 7. I got to conclude this, but I'll come back to that. Chapter 16, 7 trumpets sound off, 3 woes. Chapter 18, we come to the last thing. Chapter 16, I'm sorry. I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, again 7 angels that stand before the throne of God, telling the Lord what's going on down here, go your ways, and now pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. Nobody wants to talk about the wrath of God, do they? Oh, God is love. God is love. None of this is going to happen. These things are coming. First vial, first wind, poured out his vial upon the earth. And there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. The second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. And we'd seen that in the trumpets, remember? A third of the oceans were filled with the blood of that. And so again, it's repeated. Verse 4, and the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of water, and they all became blood. Now you ain't got no water to drink. Now what are you going to do? Thank goodness we got bottled water. What are you going to do? Mass calamity. Worldwide. Sin initiates all this. Sin causes all this punishment and destruction. You look at an individual's life. You know, I was brought up in the day by some of my first piano teachers. Made a mistake. Got corrected. So what did I want to do the next time? Oh, that felt so good. Do it again. Yeah, I hit the wrong note. I didn't have my hands properly. Well, your wrists are supposed to be up in that. I watch the kids when they're playing. That's what they play like this. Wrist up. Proper the movement and those. Everything's done for a reason, right? If you don't do it right, you get corrected. You do it to 2017. You can do whatever you want, any way that you want, and there's no price to pay for it, right? Drink as much soda as you want. Who cares? It's all good, right? You watch. It's just a matter of time, and they're going to come out and tell us what? Diabetes. You can't drink carbonated sugar water like that to not have it affect you physically, right? They did that. How long did they do that on the cigarettes? How long did they do that before they finally put the thing on the side? May cause cancer. They knew it all along, didn't they? What are they going to do about the drugs? If they know that the drugs are killing everybody and ODing and causing all this dilemma, then what's the answer? You take it away, you stop it. And they say what? Can't stop it. Really? Really? You don't want to stop it. Money. Money makes the world go round, right? So we're not trying to stop this thing that it puts everything into motion of the sin. The provoking of God. The angering of God. Go back to Judges that we did our Sunday school lesson on. When they did evil in the sight of the Lord, what did God do? He punished them. Sent them into captivity. 20 years, 40 years, they sat there. And finally, they came to their senses and said, why are we sitting here in captivity? You know, if we cry out to God and say, we're sorry, and humble ourselves, He'll be merciful to us. And He'll deliver us. And He did it every time. When you get to the book of Revelations, there's no more mercy. There's no more second chances. This is the end of the spectrum on this. While we have time, this has become my phrase, while we have time, let's understand this. If we don't deal with the sin that's initiating all these things of God's judgments on our families, on our nation, on the minds of people, so broadly affected it is. And if the church doesn't become, our purpose is that one, we don't want the wrath of God. We don't want the judgment. I don't know about you. I don't like what I read when I read the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 vials. You all read those? That's some pretty horrible stuff right there. And all I can imagine is saying, how in the world are you going to live through this? How are you going to make it through this? Well, you're not. And the idea of this, again, the church may say, oh, well, you'll be raptured out halfway through it or whatever. Well, that sounds wonderful to those that just want to play escapism, but that's not what the book says. I read there in the 7 vials, the vials of the on the flesh that attacked them was those that had the mark, 666. Meaning is that there was 777, the ones that had the mark in their foreheads, the mark of the number of the Lord, they was going through it too. I don't read there where they were taken out. I read where the church is there. So the idea of this is that this is what is our future. How close are we to this? You know, I grew up in the 1970s listening to them, The King is Coming, and When the Lord Comes Back, and they was like, oh, the Lord could come back any day now. And you realize and you recognize Matthew 18. The Lord can't come back until Matthew 18 is fulfilled. When every nation, every people, person, kingdom has heard the gospel, then the end shall be. We're still a couple thousand short on that. We were talking about the 1040 window this morning in that. We still have like 1,300 to 1,500 people groups that have never heard the gospel at all on the face of the planet. We're not there yet. And the other thing with these punishments and judgments and those things that's going on, as bad as it is now, we're not at this place either where it really gets bad. So you want to talk about looking for a silver lining, that might be the only one in this. But however, while we have this time, knowing that it's always God's desire to be favorable, as He was in 1970, as He did it last year. We had Southern West Virginia on fire for God. We was hearing about churches in the school system. Mingo Central was seeing dozens of kids come to Christ being baptized. The churches, they were filling out their fairgrounds facility every night for all summer. It simultaneously with what was going on in Burlington. That was an act of God. That was a move of God, of mercy. I called my Baptist brethren down there and said, man, get over there. Find out what's going on and report back to me. Well, that's Pentecostal. I'm not going over there. I'm going to pull my hair out. What? We want to put the line in the sand and say, well, if that's Pentecostal, then I can't be a part of it. If that's Methodist or brethren, then I don't want to be a part of that. Who cares at this point? We just need God. We have to have God. And when we get beyond that, when we get back to that standing amazed in His presence, knowing who He is, He's holy. Be ye holy as I am holy. Wasn't that the command? Be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Matthew 5:48. Sermon on the Mount. Hear the words of the Lord. Know the word of the Lord. Keep His statutes. Do what He's commanded us to do. Receive the blessings of the Lord. Don't do them. Have ears to hear but won't listen. Have time to serve Him but won't serve Him. Every one of us got a week. You can open that book every day. Got to open that book every day, because days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and before you know it, a decade has slipped along and you said, I am no further along than what I was 10 years ago. I'm a sick individual. Not one of us, none of us. Jeremiah was to stop growing right now. Little 3-year-old boy never grows another inch, never puts another pound on. Are we going to be happy and satisfied with that? Something's wrong. Spiritually, you just can't exist and think that you're going to overcome this evil that's out there going on round about. You got to go deeper. More, we hit with this the page. That's the old Baptist 360. Take time to be holy. Speak off with thy Lord. Take time. How much time do you have? How much time do we have left? Well, whatever time that there is, it ought to be invested in the Lord, saying, Lord, I want to be a catalyst to get this turned around. I want to engage this evil and push it back and to say, this ain't happening on my watch. I'm going to be the vessel that you want me to be. I mean, if you was out there in California where that dam is breaking and it's overflowing, what would you do? Wouldn't you get a couple of concrete trucks and dump a lot of concrete there? Hey, this isn't going to happen. Or take a bucket of water, 5-gallon bucket. I'll empty this thing out. It'll take me a couple hours, right? Oh, you've little faith. But if you all join me, we could do something. One individual, like I said before, the little boy, little Dutch boy standing there trying to plug the holes, using his tongue and his nose and toes and whatever else he can get to plug the holes, saying, I don't care. I'm going to hold this back. Isaiah 59, when the flood of evil comes in. Drug overdoses, murder, suicides, attacks, the assaults. You see the work of Satan in the lives and the hearts of so many that you care about. And you said, no, Lord, this can't happen. He said, you wouldn't listen. You wouldn't keep my commandments. Here's my Lord's day, the Lord's day. It's not your day. How many people say that? Well, that's my only day off. Well, that's family time. It's the Lord's day. How long is it? Lord, you got 2 hours, and this preacher don't preach too long, 30 minutes. And that's it. Cut off. We make it ours. What do you do with the other 10, 12 hours of it? That's my time. And God says, no, it's my time. You're to honor me. You're to learn of me. You're to worship together. You're to grow together. When I went over to Taiwan, in those places over there, they get it. They'd start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they would go till 12 o'clock. The ladies would be back there in the kitchen. As soon as the service was over, the worship 3-hour church service was over, they pushed the stuff back, set the tables up. The ladies brought the thing out. You sat down and you ate for an hour and a half. They'd clean up. Just like little busy beavers in there. Clean up, put the tables back, bring the chairs out. They'd have small group from 2 to 5 o'clock, next 3 hours. 5 o'clock, bring the tables back out. Here comes the next round of supper. Everybody sit there, fellowship, and eat. And then they'd close out 6 to 8 o'clock. From 9 o'clock till 8 o'clock, it was church, and the body was together. We try to do in an hour and 2 what we're supposed to be doing in 16 hours in the church. You can't do it. Trust it. To go out of here on Sunday at 4 o'clock And to go back Monday through Saturday and be in the Word and be in prayer and tell other people about Jesus Christ and fast and weep and pay attention to what's going on and pay attention to His kingdom and try to meet the two and to say, I'm not with the body, I'm out here in the world, but I'm going to be a light. I'm going to be a vessel, I'm going to grow. You get Christians that come after 6 days and they come back in, they've never opened a book, they've never said a prayer except haphazardly, they never tell anybody about Jesus Christ. 50 days into this year, and most Christians have never said anything to anybody about eternity. You see, we are initiating the problem when God says, I entrusted you to keep my statutes, to do my work. It's you. You said, but we're so small. We're just a handful. We're just a few. That don't matter. Didn't He take 12 and turn the world upside down? This means yes. Yes. You say, well, I can't. You're absolutely right. We can't. But I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. I can't do it. I can't make myself do it. But when the Spirit of God is poured out, it sets the heart on fire that you don't want anything else but Him. When I talk about people going to church every night in 1971 and last year, and they said, why did those people go work 8 hours, down there in North Carolina, go sit in a 110, 120 degree tent on hay every night for 2, 3, 4 hours? Why? Because they were drawn. Fire was there. They had to go see it. You know, I'm a pyromaniac. When I see smoke, fire, I'm looking. I'm checking it out. I get this higher? Can I get this hotter? I mean, I'm scared. It's the same thing spiritually. How high do you want the Spirit, the fire, to be on you? Set my soul on fire. Burn it deep within me. Millions grope in darkness, waiting for Thy word. Pour out the fire of God before you pour out the vials, before you sound the trumpets, before you break the seals. Set us on fire. Let us be doing what we're supposed to be doing, keeping your word and going deeper with you. Here I am, Lord. Fill me with your Holy Spirit till my cup runs over. I can't do it on half full. I can't do it with a lukewarmness. What did He say He would do to lukewarmness in Revelation 3? Well done, good job, right? Vomit you out of my mouth. I'll cast you out. I would that you were hot or cold. Gene, you're always cold, aren't you? It's 85 degrees in here right now, but she's cold. I would that you were hot or cold, but you're lukewarm. How are you? Just right. What was that, the baby bear? That chair was just right. That bed was just right. That porch was just right. The Christians running around with the same attitude. I'm just comfortable. He doesn't want us to be comfortable. Souls are perishing. Every overdose death is another soul in hell. 12,000 people afflicted with that bug, that flu bug, in the United States a week. Most of them turn into pneumonia, and pneumonia leads to death. People being shot. Homes being ripped apart. Lives crumbling. Evil infiltrating in social media and across the airwaves into the minds and the hearts of these young people. And they're growing up in such debauchery and vileness of things that you and I never even thought about or knew about. And it's becoming public. Full emergency brake. God, we just can't go on like this. God says, you're right. Lord, what we got to do? When are you going to get serious about this thing? Deeper prayers, tears, anguish. A lot of you all watch Charles Stanley, see his Bible teachings. He had Leonard Ravenhill in there back in the 1970s or 80s. Preached there a full month, 30 days. And he says, do you know who the first one was at the altar during the invitation? It was Dr. Charles Stanley. Laying prostrate, sobbing, weeping, begging God for revival on his people, revival on himself. Fill me with the fire. You want to know why? What's it? Touch? What is it? In Touch?
In Touch.
Why In Touch is worldwide and has been for 30 years was because he humbled himself before God and said, empty me of self, fill me with your spirit. Look what God did to him. And he went through some fires with his wife and his kids, but he still did the work of the Lord. But he will all trace it back to that time period. I'm not content. I'm not satisfied. I got to go deeper. I got to be more. You become content, and you crack the door open for Satan to come and do his worst work. You have an understanding of Leviticus and Revelation. This is what's in motion. This is what we're at right now, being set into motion. And we realize is that we continue to see a nation, just like the 2 court rulings this week. God, we abhor you. We don't even want you to pray over a county commissioner meeting. Nobody goes to a county commissioner meeting. Who cares? But just because they abhor God and the Word and the church, they want to annihilate it, cut it off. Because Satan sends his minions to do his bidding. It's for all the marbles. This is for it all. Eternity. Perishing. They're going into eternity. You and I, that's my son, that's my daughter, that's my loved one. God, don't. This can happen. And it'll be opened up in the oracles of the judgment day of how many tears we shed and how earnest we was and how fervent we was when we realized that Satan come in, swooped in and took our loved ones, our sons, daughters, husbands, wives, and said, they're mine and I'm not giving them back. And how many times we agonized in that saying, no, this can't happen. Stolen, one by one, years, decades, took them. Deceived them, lied to them, owned them. Took them into the drugs, took them into the alcohol, took them into the sexual sins, and just annihilated their lives and their futures. The church sat there and said, we hope they get better. He said, fight for them. Cry for them. Beg for them. Plead for them. Yes, God. While I have time. Don't let this be my history. Don't let this be my destruction. Here I am, God. An individual looking at a mass of humanity saying, don't let this be. Philadelphia, I was in Philadelphia Monday. 5 million people out and about in that area and region, all around about there. Insane with the amount of people looking at it, perishing. Sat in the Coliseum yesterday, 14,000 in there, and I'm looking around at them and I'm thinking, I'd love to preach to all of you. Toasting with their beards, profanity in their language. You talking about being out of sorts. I was the wrong pineapple in that bunch. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this is society. This is the world that we're living in. Oh God. Help us. Help me. Use me. Fill me. Take me. And that plea set me on fire. Burn it deep within me. Get me busy about your kingdom's business while we have time. He's going to pull the carpet out here before too long. And we won't be able to do anything about it. I mean, how close are we to collapse right now? We better get busy. May that be your prayer. May that be your eating. Realization 7 times.